The broken pack, the old Wolf, lay dying, and an entire world held its breath. Alpha Prime Fenris had ruled the Vareth for 3,000 years. His bloodline had kept the peace, calmed the young, and united a species that could tear itself apart without proper guidance. Now his ancient body failed him, and there was no heir to take his place. Elder Korra stood beside his bed, her silver fur showing her own advanced age. She had served 4 generations of Alphas. She had never imagined she would watch the last one die. The Vareth were not like other species in the galaxy. They stood 7 feet tall, covered in thick fur, with powerful jaws and claws that could cut through metal. They looked like the wolves of Earth, but they walked upright and built starships. They were proud warriors, feared across 100 star systems. But they had a weakness that few outsiders understood. Their young were born wild. Every Vareth cub came into the world with instincts that screamed for blood and battle. Without guidance, they would fight each other until only the strongest survived. In ancient times, before the Alpha bloodline emerged, the Vareth nearly destroyed themselves. Cubs killed cubs. Families tore themselves apart. The species almost went extinct. Then came the first Alpha. No one knew exactly how it happened. Perhaps it was a mutation, perhaps a gift from the universe itself. But one Vareth was born different. He carried a special scent that calmed the young. His mind could reach out and touch the minds of cubs, soothing their rage, teaching them control. Under his guidance, the Vareth survived. They grew. They built a civilization. The Alpha power passed from parent to child, always staying in the same bloodline. For 3,000 years, there was always an Alpha to guide the cubs. The system worked perfectly. Until now. Fenris had no children. His only son had died in an accident 50 years ago. His brother's line had ended in disease. One by one, every member of the Alpha bloodline had passed away, until only Fenris remained. He had lived far longer than any Vareth should, holding on through pure will, trying to give his people time to find a solution. Time had run out. Korra watched as Fenris took his final breath. The great Alpha's eyes closed, and 3,000 years of unbroken rule came to an end. She felt it immediately. Every Vareth on the planet felt it. The bond was gone. Across the colony world of Ashenvale, cubs began to scream. The youngest ones simply cried, confused by the sudden emptiness in their minds. The older ones grew violent, their carefully controlled instincts breaking free without the Alpha's calming presence. In the capital city, a training facility for young warriors descended into chaos. Cubs who had been sparring as friends suddenly attacked each other with killing intent. Their teachers tried to separate them, but the adults were affected too. Without the Alpha's guidance, even grown Vareth felt the pull of their ancient, violent nature. Korra forced herself to focus. She was old enough to remember life before she bonded with an Alpha, old enough to control her instincts through sheer experience. But most of her people were not. She called an emergency meeting of the Council of Fangs, the governing body that advised the Alpha. 7 elders answered her call, though 2 had to be restrained by guards to prevent them from attacking each other. "We must select a new Alpha immediately," Korra announced. Her voice was steady despite the fear in her heart. "Our cubs will tear themselves apart within days if we do not." "There is no one to select," growled Elder Baram, the youngest council member at only 200 years old. "The bloodline is dead. No Vareth carries the Alpha markers." "Then we must find another way." But there was no other way. The Vareth had spent centuries trying to understand the Alpha power, hoping to replicate it or transfer it to a new bloodline. Every attempt had failed. The power was mysterious, almost magical in nature. It could not be copied or created. Korra made a decision that would change everything. "We will contact the Galactic Union," she said. "We will ask for help." Several elders snarled at this suggestion. The Verith were proud. They did not ask other species for assistance. They solved their own problems with strength and will. "Would you rather watch our children die?" Cora snapped, her patience breaking. "Would you rather our species end because we were too proud to ask for aid?" The snarling stopped. 3 days later, a human ship entered orbit around Ashinvale. The Galactic Union had sent their best diplomatic team, led by Ambassador Park Do-Yin. Humans were relatively new to galactic politics, having only discovered faster-than-light travel 80 years ago. But they had earned a reputation for solving problems that other species could not. They thought differently than the older races. Sometimes that made all the difference. Do-Yin did not want to bring his daughter on this mission. The situation on Ashenvale was dangerous, and Yuna was only 12 years old. But his wife had died 2 years ago, and Yuna refused to be separated from him. She had become quiet and sad since her mother's death, and Do-Yin could not bear to leave her alone on Earth. So Yuna came with him, clutching a small music player that held recordings of her mother's favorite songs. The shuttle descended through Ashenvale's atmosphere, passing over forests of purple trees and mountains that glowed with natural crystals. It was a beautiful world, but the beauty hid growing chaos. Fires burned in several cities. The howling of cubs echoed even through the shuttle's thick walls. "Stay close to me," Do-Yin told his daughter. "The Verith are going through a difficult time. They may seem scary, but they need our help." Yuna nodded but said nothing. She rarely spoke these days. Elder Cora met them at the landing pad, flanked by guards who kept their weapons ready. Not to threaten the humans, but to protect everyone from the cubs who might break free at any moment. "Thank you for coming," Cora said, her translator device turning her growls into human speech. "I must be honest with you, Ambassador. I do not know if anyone can help us, but we are desperate enough to try." Do-Yin bowed respectfully. "We will do everything we can, Elder. We have brought medical specialists, genetic researchers, and supplies. Perhaps together we can find a solution." Neither of them noticed Yuna slipping away from the group, drawn by a sound that only she seemed to hear, the sound of crying. The girl who sent Yuna followed the crying through empty hallways. The guards had left their posts, called away to handle some emergency elsewhere. No one saw the small human girl walking deeper into the medical complex. She did not know why she was walking toward danger instead of away from it. She only knew that something was pulling her forward. The sound of pain and fear called to her heart. She had felt that same pain when her mother died. She knew what it was like to feel lost and alone. The crying grew louder as she approached a heavy metal door. Warning signs covered every surface, written in both Verith script and translated human text. "Quarantine zone. Dangerous patients. Do not enter without authorization." Yuna pushed the door open anyway. The room beyond was large and dark. Metal cages lined the walls, each one holding a young Verith. Some were small, barely the size of human toddlers. Others were as big as adult humans, their fur matted with blood and dirt. All of them had been sedated, their bodies limp and their breathing shallow. But the sedation was wearing off. One of the largest cubs, a male with deep scars across his face, began to stir. His eyes opened, glowing yellow in the darkness. He saw Yuna and growled, a sound that should have sent any sensible person running. Yuna did not run. Instead, she sat down in the middle of the room and pulled out her music player. She found her favorite song, the one her mother used to sing every night before bed. The melody filled the air, soft and gentle. Then Yuna began to sing along. Her voice was not strong or trained. She was just a 12-year-old girl singing a Korean lullaby. But something in that simple song reached the cubs in a way that medicine and restraints could not. The scarred male stopped growling. His ears, which had been flat against his skull, slowly rose. He tilted his head, listening. One by one, the other cubs woke from their sedation. 30 young Varieth, some of whom had killed their handlers, some of whom had hurt themselves trying to escape, all of them driven mad by the loss of their alpha. They should have attacked. They should have torn the small human apart. Instead, they listened. Yuna sang the whole song, then started it again from the beginning. Tears ran down her face because the song reminded her of her mother, but she kept singing anyway. The cubs needed comfort. She understood that need better than anyone. The scarred male rose from his cage. The door had been bent by his earlier attempts to escape, and now he pushed through easily. He walked toward Yuna on all fours, his massive body moving with dangerous grace. Yuna stopped singing. Her heart beat fast, but she did not move. The male sat down beside her. He was close enough that she could feel his warm breath on her face. His yellow eyes studied her for a long moment. Then he lay down and rested his head in her lap. One by one, the other cubs followed. They broke free from their damaged cages and gathered around the human girl. They did not fight each other. They did not growl or snap. They simply arranged themselves in a circle around Yuna and waited for her to keep singing. So she did. The guards found them 10 minutes later. Elga Cora came running when she heard the news, expecting to find a human child torn to pieces. Instead, she found something impossible. 30 feral cubs, completely calm, arranged in perfect order around a small girl who was humming softly while stroking the scarred male's fur. "What did you do?" Cora demanded. Her old heart was beating so fast she thought it might stop. Yuna looked up with red eyes from crying. "I just sang to them. They seemed sad." Cora stepped forward, and immediately the scarred male rose. He positioned himself between Yuna and the elder, his teeth showing in warning. He was protecting her. "Tayo," Cora breathed. She knew this cub. He had been brought to the quarantine section after killing 2 handlers who tried to restrain him. He was considered the most dangerous patient in the entire facility. Now he was standing guard over a human child like a loyal pet. No, not a pet. A warrior protecting his alpha. Ambassador Do-hyun arrived moments later, his face pale with fear. He saw his daughter surrounded by Vareth cubs, and his legs almost gave out. "Yuna, come here right now." "I can't, Appa," Yuna said softly. "If I leave, they might get sad again." She was right. As Do-hyun moved closer, several cubs began to whimper. The moment Yuna stroked their fur and made soothing sounds, they calmed down. Cora's mind raced. This should not be possible. The alpha bond was biological, genetic, something that only existed in Vareth bloodlines. A human could not replicate it. Humans did not have the right pheromones, the right brain structure, the right anything. Yet here it was, happening before her eyes. "We need to study this," she said quietly. "We need to understand what is happening." Do-hyun wanted to refuse. He wanted to grab his daughter and run back to their ship and fly away from this strange world. But he saw the way the cubs looked at Yuna. He saw the peace on their faces, the first peace they had known since their alpha died, and he saw something else too. He saw Yuna smiling for the first time since her mother's death. "Okay," he said finally, "but I stay with her, always." The tests began the next morning. Dr. Han Yoonji, the delegation's expert on alien biology, set up equipment in a room next to the quarantine section. She measured everything she could think of. Hormone levels, brain activity, pheromone production, electromagnetic fields. The results made no sense. "It's not chemical," Yoonji explained to Cora and Do-hyun. "When Yuna is near the cubs, their stress hormones drop dramatically. Their brain patterns synchronize. They start producing the bonding hormone that they should only produce in the presence of an alpha. But there is nothing in Yuna's biology that should cause this reaction. Then, what is it?" Do-hyun asked. Yoonji hesitated. She was a scientist. She believed in facts and data and things that could be measured. But she could not deny what she had observed. "I think it is something that cannot be measured with machines," she said finally. "I think it is empathy. Pure, genuine empathy. Your alpha bond was always based on dominance. The alpha calmed the cubs by asserting control over their minds. But Yuna does not control them. She simply cares about them. She understands their pain because she has felt similar pain herself. And somehow, the cubs can sense that." Korra was silent for a long time. "You are saying," she said slowly, "that a human child's love is stronger than 3,000 years of genetic programming?" Yoonji nodded. "I am saying that maybe love was always what the cubs needed. They just never had a chance to receive it without strings attached." In the quarantine room, Yuna sat among her cubs, singing her mother's song again. Taiho lay beside her, his scarred head resting against her knee. For the first time in weeks, he was purring. The Council's choice. The Council of Fangs met in the great stone chamber where Vareth had made important decisions for centuries. Torches burned along the walls, casting dancing shadows over the 7 elders who sat in a circle. At the center of the circle stood Elder Korra, her silver fur glowing in the firelight. "What I am about to suggest will anger many of you," she began. "But I ask that you listen before you judge." The other elders waited. They had all heard rumors about what was happening in the medical complex. Cubs that had been driven mad were now calm and peaceful. The most dangerous patients had become gentle as lambs. And at the center of it all was a human child. "I believe we have found our new alpha," Korra said. The reaction was immediate and fierce. "Impossible," roared Elder Barham, rising from his seat. "A human cannot be alpha. It goes against everything our species believes. Our species is dying." Korra snapped back. "Every day, more cubs lose control. Every day, our population falls. In 1 year, perhaps 2, there will not be enough of us left to continue. Is your pride worth more than our survival?" "There must be another way," said Elder Mira, the only female on the council besides Korra. "What about the genetic treatments?" "We have been working on enhancing bloodlines that are close to the alpha line." Korra shook her head sadly. "I have seen the results. The treatments can increase dominance markers, but they cannot create the true alpha bond. Our best candidate is my own grandson, Seojin. The scientists say his markers are the strongest of any Vareth alive. But even he cannot calm the cubs the way this human child can." "Then we test them both," Barham demanded. "Let the cubs choose." Korra agreed that the test was arranged for the following day. Seojin arrived at the medical complex looking confident. He was young by Vareth standards, only 90 years old, but he was already a decorated warrior. His body was massive even for a Vareth, covered in thick black fur. The genetic treatments had enhanced his natural dominance, giving him an aura of power that made other Vareth want to bow. Yuna sat in the corner of the quarantine room with her cubs gathered around her. She looked so small compared to Seojin, like a flower next to a mountain. Taiho stood beside her, his scarred body tense with suspicion. "This is foolish," Seojin growled as he entered the room. "How can a human pup compare to Vareth blood?" The cubs did not run to him. They did not lower their heads in submission. Instead, they pressed closer to Yuna, their eyes fixed on the large male with growing hostility. Seojin was surprised, but not worried. He had been given the strongest genetic enhancements available. His pheromones should overpower any competing influence. He stepped forward and released his dominance fully. The air grew thick with his scent, a chemical signal that screamed of power and authority. Any normal cub would have submitted immediately. Taiho attacked. The scarred male launched himself at Seojin with no warning, teeth and claws seeking flesh. Other cubs followed, younglings who had been gentle and peaceful moments before, now fighting like wild animals. They were protecting Yuna. Saojin was forced to retreat. He was stronger than any individual cub, but there were 30 of them, and they fought with desperate fury. If the guards had not pulled him out, he might have been seriously hurt. They rejected him, Cora said quietly from the observation room. The cubs have already chosen their alpha. Baram watched through the window as Yuna calmed her cubs with soft words and gentle touches. The same younglings who had just tried to kill a Vareth warrior now sat peacefully at the feet of a human child. I do not understand it, he admitted, but I cannot deny what I see. None of us understand it, Cora replied. But perhaps understanding is not necessary. Perhaps we simply need to accept what is. The council met again that night. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. By a margin of 5-2, they agreed to offer the position of alpha to the human girl called Yuna. Ambassador Do-hyun was informed of the decision immediately. Absolutely not, he said without hesitation. She is 12 years old. She is my daughter. I will not let you put this burden on her. The burden has already been placed, Cora replied gently. Your daughter did not ask for this power, but she has it nonetheless. If you take her away, the cubs who have bonded with her will suffer terribly. Some may die. Do-hyun's hands trembled. He was a diplomat. He had negotiated treaties between star systems and resolved conflicts that had lasted centuries. But nothing had prepared him for this. What would being alpha mean for her? He asked finally. She would not rule in the traditional sense. The council would continue to handle political matters. Yuna would simply be present, a calming influence, a source of stability for our young. For how long? Cora hesitated. Our previous alpha served for life, but we would never force such a commitment from a child. If Yuna wishes to leave when she is older, we will find a way to manage. We only ask that she stay long enough for us to stabilize our population. That night, Do-hyun sat with his daughter in their small room at the diplomatic quarters. Yuna was drawing pictures of her cubs, having already memorized all of their names and personalities. The Vareth want you to be their leader, Do-hyun said carefully. Or something like a leader. They want you to help their children. Yuna did not look up from her drawing. I know, Taiho told me. Taiho can speak to you? Not with words, but I understand him anyway. Do-hyun felt tears forming in his eyes. His little girl had already grown so much since they arrived on this world. The sadness that had clouded her since her mother's death was fading, replaced by a new sense of purpose. What do you want it to do? He asked. Yuna finally looked up. Her eyes were clear and determined in a way Do-hyun had not seen in years. Mama always said that if you can help someone, you should. The cubs need help, Appa. I can help them. So I want to stay. Don pulled his daughter into a tight hug. He was terrified of what the future might bring, but he was also proud beyond words. Then we stay together, he whispered. Whatever happens, we face it together. The gathering words spread faster than anyone expected. The cubs in the quarantine section were not the only ones who had felt something strange. All across Ashenvale, young Vareth had sensed a new presence in their minds. It was not like the old alpha bond, which had felt like a strong hand holding them steady. This was different, warmer, like a soft blanket wrapping around their hearts. They began to move. The first report came from a small village 300 miles from the capital. 20 cubs had broken free from their homes during the night. They had not attacked anyone. They had simply walked away, heading in the same direction with quiet determination. More reports followed. Cubs from cities and farms and military bases, all leaving their families and traveling toward the medical complex. Some were carried by worried parents who did not understand what was happening. Others made the journey alone, guided by an instinct they could not explain. By the third day, there were over 300 cubs gathered outside the complex gates. Kara watched from her window as the young Verith arrived. They were of all ages and sizes. Some were so small they could barely walk. Others were nearly adults, their powerful bodies restless with energy. But they all shared the same calm expression, the same patient waiting. They knew their alpha was inside. They simply wanted to be near her. "We cannot keep them outside," Cora told the council. "They will not leave, and we cannot force them." "Bring them in," Barum agreed reluctantly. "Let the human girl see what she has done." Una stood in the main courtyard as the gates opened. She had expected to feel scared. 300 Verith cubs, some of them larger than adult humans, all walking toward her. Any other 12-year-old would have run away, but Una felt only peace. The cubs approached slowly, respectfully. Taiho stood at Una's side, his position making it clear that he was her first protector, her closest companion. The other cubs from the quarantine section formed a ring around her, welcoming their new brothers and sisters. The largest of the newcomers was an adolescent female named Nari. She was almost fully grown, her silver fur marking her as a member of a noble bloodline. She had been scheduled for military training before the Alpha died. Now, her future was uncertain. Nari walked forward until she stood directly in front of Una. The human girl had to tilt her head back to look at the towering Verith. "You are small," Nari said through her translator. Her voice was rough, uncertain. "You are soft. You have no claws or teeth. How can you protect us?" It was a fair question. Verith respected strength above all else. Their previous alphas had been warriors, capable of defeating any challenger in combat. Una could not fight. She could barely lift a heavy bag. "I cannot fight like you can," Una admitted. "But that is not what you need, is it? You need someone to make the pain go away. You need someone to help you feel safe." "I can do that." Nari stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she lowered herself to the ground and pressed her massive head against Una's small hand. "I accept you," Nari said simply. One by one, the other cubs followed. 300 young Verith, the future of their entire species, all bowing before a human child who had nothing to offer but kindness, watching from his window. Se-Yin felt something crack inside him. He had trained his entire life to become Alpha. He had endured painful genetic treatments. He had pushed his body beyond all limits. All of it was supposed to prepare him for this moment, for the chance to lead his people through their darkest hour. Instead, the role had been given to an alien child who had done nothing to earn it. His grandmother found him later that evening, sitting alone in the darkness of his room. "You hate her," Cora said. It was not a question. "I hate what she represents," Seojin replied. 3,000 years of tradition, thrown away because a human girl has a pretty voice. Our traditions were killing us. Perhaps they deserved to be thrown away. Seojin turned to face his grandmother. His yellow eyes glowed with barely controlled anger. "I could challenge her. The old laws allow any Verith to challenge for the Alpha position through combat. She would have to face me alone." Cora sat down beside her grandson. She was old, but her mind was still sharp. "You could," she agreed. "And you would win. A human child cannot defeat a Verith warrior." "But then what? The cubs have bonded with her. If you kill her, they will turn against you. You would be Alpha of nothing." "I would not kill her. Just defeat her. Force her to submit." "Can you force submission from someone who has already surrendered everything? She has no pride to break, no power to take. She's just a child who wants to help. What victory could you possibly claim?" Seojin had no answer. "Go to her," Cora suggested. "Watch her with the cubs." See what she actually does before you judge what she is." Reluctantly, Seojin went. He found Yuna in the main hall, surrounded by cubs of all ages. She was teaching them a human game, something called musical chairs. The cubs were too big for actual chairs, so they used large cushions instead. When the music stopped, they all tried to find a seat, bumping into each other and falling over in tangled piles of fur. They were laughing. Seojin had never heard so many cubs laughing at once. In his experience, young Varith were always serious, always competitive. They trained from birth to be warriors. There was no time for games. But these cubs were playing. They were happy. They were acting like children should act. Yuna noticed him watching and waved him over. "Do you want to play?" "I am too large," Seojin said stiffly. "Then you can control the music." She handed him her small player. "Press this button to start, and this button to stop. Try to trick them." Despite himself, Seojin agreed. He watched the cubs run and scramble and tackle each other over cushions. He watched Yuna laugh when a tiny cub climbed onto her back, refusing to let go. He watched Taiho, the most dangerous patient in the quarantine section, rolling on the ground while two pups used him as a climbing toy. Something changed in Seojin's heart. These cubs were not following Yuna because of her power. They were following her because she made them feel loved. It was such a simple thing, but no alpha had ever offered it before. The old alphas controlled through dominance. Yuna led through affection. Perhaps Seojin thought this was what the Varith had always needed. Perhaps they had simply been too proud to see it. The new alpha, the coronation ceremony, was held in the Grand Temple, a massive stone building that had witnessed the crowning of every alpha for 3,000 years. Torches lined the walls, filling the space with dancing orange light. Ancient carvings depicted the history of the Varith people, from their savage beginnings to their rise as one of the great powers of the galaxy. Today, that history would change forever. Yuna stood at the entrance, wearing ceremonial robes that had been quickly modified to fit her small human body. The fabric was deep purple, the traditional color of Alpha Authority, decorated with silver thread that sparkled in the torchlight. Her father stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder. "You can still say no," Duyun whispered. "No one will blame you." "I know, Appa." Yuna looked up at him with calm eyes. "But this is where I am supposed to be. I can feel it." The temple doors opened, and they walked inside together. The building was filled with Varith of all ages. Council elders sat in positions of honor near the front. Military leaders stood along the walls, their weapons held in ceremonial poses. Common citizens packed the remaining space, straining to see the small figure walking down the central aisle. And everywhere, there were cubs, 300 young Varith who had traveled from across the planet to be near Yuna. They sat in perfect rows, their eyes following her every step. Among them was Taiho, his scarred body positioned closest to the aisle. He would not let his alpha walk this path alone. Elder Korra waited at the altar, wearing the ceremonial headdress of the High Elder. Behind her stood a pedestal holding the alpha crown, a simple band of dark metal that had been worn by every alpha in history. "We gathered today to witness the impossible," Korra began, her voice echoing through the temple. "Our alpha bloodline has ended. By all rights, our species should follow. But the universe has given us a gift we never expected." She turned to face Yuna directly. "Human child, you have calmed our cubs when no Varith could. You have given hope to the hopeless. You have shown us that strength comes in many forms, not all of them violent. The Council of Fangs has agreed to offer you the position of Alpha. Do you accept this responsibility?" Yuna's voice was small but steady. "I accept." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some were still not happy about this decision. A human alpha went against everything they believed about themselves. But no one could deny what they had witnessed over the past weeks. Cora reached for the crown. "Before I place this upon your head, tradition demands that any challenger step forward. If you believe yourself more worthy of the Alpha position, speak now and face the candidate in trial." This was the moment Sajin had been waiting for. He stood near the front of the crowd, his massive body tense with conflicted emotions. Part of him still wanted to challenge. His pride demanded it. Every instinct he had been trained to follow screamed that he should fight for what was rightfully his. But he had watched Yuna with the cubs. He had seen the joy she brought them. He had felt, just for a moment, what it might be like to follow someone who led with love instead of fear. Seojin stepped forward. The crowd gasped. Guards moved to intervene, but Cora held up her hand, stopping them. This was tradition. It could not be interrupted. Yuna watched the giant warrior approach. She did not run or cry. She simply stood straight and waited. Seojin stopped in front of her. He towered over the small human, his shadow covering her completely. His eyes glowed with inner light, and his muscles tensed as if preparing for battle. Then he dropped to one knee. The temple fell absolutely silent. "I do not challenge," Seojin said, his voice rough with emotion. "I submit. Whatever you are, human child, you are more alpha than I could ever be. I pledge my strength to your service. Command me as you wish." One by one, the other military leaders knelt. Then the common citizens. Even the council elders bowed their heads. Among the cubs, Taiho raised his scarred face and howled. It was not a howl of grief or confusion, but one of joy. The other cubs joined him. 300 voices rising together in a song that had not been heard in Vareth temples for centuries. The song of acceptance. Cora lifted the Alpha crown and placed it gently on Yuna's head. The metal band was too large, slipping slightly before she adjusted it. "Rise, Alpha Yuna," Cora announced. "Rise and guide your people." Yuna turned to face the crowd. She was so small against the vastness of the temple, so young among these ancient warriors. But when she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the building. "I do not know all of your traditions," she said. "I am not strong like you. I cannot fight like you. But I promise to always care about you. I promise to always listen when you are sad and celebrate when you are happy. I promise to be your family, if you will let me." It was not a grand speech. No inspiring words about conquest or glory. Just a simple promise from a child who wanted to help. It was enough. 10 years passed. Alpha. Yuna stood on the observation deck of the Vareth flagship, looking out at the stars. She was 22 years old now, tall for a human woman, though still small compared to her Vareth companions. The Alpha crown sat comfortably on her head, having been resized years ago to fit her properly. Taiho stood beside her, as always. His fur had grown lighter with age, but his body was still strong. He had become her chief advisor and closest friend, the voice she trusted above all others. "The Council of Species has sent another request," Taiho reported. "The Krell are facing a similar crisis. Their young are suffering without proper guidance. They have heard of what you did for the Vareth. They want to know if humanity has any more miracles to offer." Yuna smiled. It was her mother's smile. Her father had always said. Behind her, a new generation of cubs played in the ship's common area. They had never known the fear and confusion that older Vareth remembered. They had grown up with an Alpha who sang them songs and played games with them and made them feel loved. They were stronger for it, not weaker. "Tell the Krell the miracles are not something you keep for yourself," Yuna said. "They are something you share. If they need help, we will help them. And what will you offer? You cannot leave the Vareth." "I do not have to. We have spent 10 years learning how to spread the Alpha bond. Our doctors and scientists have worked with human researchers to understand what makes it work. Perhaps we cannot give the Krell exactly what the Vareth have, but we can give them something. She turned to look at Taiho, her first protector, her oldest friend. We can give them hope. Through the viewport, Vareth ships flew in formation alongside human vessels. The two species had grown close over the past decade, bound together by an unexpected miracle. Other races watched with curiosity and wonder. How had the fearsome Vareth been transformed so completely? How had a human child accomplished what centuries of Vareth tradition could not? The answer was simple, though few could truly understand it. The Vareth had spent 3,000 years trying to control their violent instincts through force. They had used dominance and authority and fear. It had worked, but it had come with a cost. Their cubs obeyed, but they never truly healed. Then came a small human girl with a sad heart and a mother's song. She had offered something the Vareth had never considered. Not control, but comfort. Not authority, but affection. Not the power to command, but the willingness to care. In the end, love had proven stronger than instinct, and a species that had nearly destroyed itself found salvation in the arms of a child, far away. In a small home on Earth, Ambassador Park Do-hyun played the same lullaby that his wife had sung years ago. He had retired from diplomatic service, content to live quietly while his daughter changed the galaxy. On his wall hung a painting from Ashenvale, a gift from Elder Korra before she passed. It showed a small human girl surrounded by Vareth cubs, all of them looking at her with adoration. The inscription at the bottom read, "The greatest alpha was the one who simply cared." Do-hyun smiled at the memory of his wife, who had always believed that kindness was the most powerful force in the universe. She had been right all along.